Okay, it's recording.
No, if you need to use my laptop.
There you go.
It's very nice to meet you.
All right. You're still breaking up. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. We'll just go. I have a list of questions you sent me. You just want to go through them and
So is it okay if you could describe your life before you went to service?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Is it okay if you could describe your life before you went to service?
Okay, before service?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. I was born at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri in 1956. My dad was stationed there with the Army. He served during World War II and went on to serve a total of 22 years. What was it like growing up? We moved around a lot because he was Army. So I lived in Missouri and California mostly. We did live in Texas for a short time, but I was real young and don't remember any of it. We had a big family. My generation's not called the baby boomers for nothing. We had 7 kids in the family. So, and like I said, my dad, he served in the Army. My family has a history of serving in the Army going back to pre-Civil War days. I was the first one to go in the Navy, so I was kind of made fun of a little bit by everybody. When did I join? I did join in 1977, a couple of years after I graduated high school. I was looking to get some college education in electronics. So my plan was to go into the Navy for 4 years and then get out and use the GI Bill to go to college. I never made it to college, but I spent 20 years in the Navy. So
That's very cool.
Once I was in the Navy, I originally had no real plan other than I wanted to go into electronics. And during basic training, I attended basically a recruiting pitch for the submarine service, and it sounded good. So I volunteered for submarines and went into Navy submarines at that point. Because of the program I went into, it was called Advanced Electronics. I skipped the first 2 pay grades. I went in as a pay grade 3 or a seaman. And then went to submarine school in Connecticut. And while I was there, I made 3rd class petty officer. And throughout my career, I made it all the way up to chief petty officer.
Wow.
I was a fire control technician. One thing about the military is their job titles are kind of deceptive in that it sounds like I was a fireman, but I actually launched the weapons. So I didn't.
Oh, so you launched the
It's a little bit
missiles out of the
different.
submarine?
Says which units were you stationed with? I was with 4 submarines. My first one was the Patrick Henry Gold Crew, homeported in Hawaii. We operated out of Guam. Then I went to an instructor tour in Connecticut at the submarine school for a year and a half. Went back out to the Pacific and rode the USS Haddock out of San Diego. It's an attack submarine. And we went into the shipyards in 1983 in Mare Island, California, which is just north of San Francisco. And then just after I got there, I was transferred to Hawaii to the USS Sargo, probably the 2nd oldest submarine in the Pacific Fleet. So we had a lot of challenges with her. And then after that, I went to staff duty at Submarine Squadron 7 in Hawaii, and we had 10 submarines assigned to us. I was a tactical assistant. My job was to make sure that they trained for all their certifications, nuclear weapons, conventional weapons, all that. And then after that, I went to the USS Louisville in San Diego. And roughly 8.5 months after I got to her, we left for Desert Storm. And then after I rode to Louisville for 3.5 years, I went to Fleet Technical Support Center in San Diego. We provided tech support for all the submarines in the Pacific. We did a lot of traveling. We had a $12 million travel budget that we spent in the first 10 months.
Question, what happened during Desert Storm?
I'm sorry, I've got.
Sorry. What happened during Desert Storm?
Me. If I can.
Would it be better to use my laptop?
No, I don't think
The
so.
camera and everything.
The camera and everything's fine. It's her audio. Can you try that again? Let me, Shelby, I can.
What happened during Desert Storm?
What kind of submarines?
No, I mean, what happened during Desert Storm? You say you were in Desert Storm?
Your audio is breaking up and I can't hear you. Let me try. Can you
let
write
me try.
hold it up?
Say that again.
Can you try writing your note on a paper and holding it up?
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
Or send a chat?
No, I'll put in the chat.
Oh, what happened during Desert Storm? We were in the Red Sea, and we were the first submarine to launch a combat weapon since World War II. So we were 400 miles from our targets, throwing missiles across Saudi Arabia into Iraq.
Wow.
On that, to give you some background, we crossed the entire Pacific, 14,800 miles in 22 days.
Wow.
So that's how fast submarines are. So it asks where I was stationed. So all my submarines were, I had 2 of them in San Diego, 2 of them in Hawaii. And then I was, like I said, I was an instructor at the submarine school in Connecticut. For that, I taught 3 different classes, which were the course of instruction for the officers is they were there for 6 months. And then there was different pieces that were put together. So I taught a 5-day class on target motion analysis, how to track targets. I taught a 5-day class on weapons employment, how to select which torpedo to use, how to set missiles up, all that. And then I taught a 2-week class on approach and attack, on how to do attacks by submarines, how to position yourself and all that. So you have a question here, do you do anything before you and your unit went out of the wire?
Yeah, that means going on to enemy
so that's
territory.
kind of a different setup for us, because when we left port, we were gone for 6 months. So we do a full load out of torpedoes and missiles. We would spend 3 days loading food because we took 6 months worth of food with us. Then everybody got all their inoculations and shots up to date, and dental and all that prep work. Because once we left, we had 1 person that was typically about 22 years old. That was our entire medical department. So that individual was trained as our dentist, our doctor, everything. And so they tried to make sure we were as healthy as possible before we left. We were given a physical every 6 months while in submarines. The closest I got to having an injury is we were running a drill, and I was one of the drill monitors, and I dropped my pen, and when I stood up underneath a valve and got a gash in my head. Ended up with 3 stitches.
That must have hurt.
That's the closest I got. Like even during Desert Storm, like I said, we were 400 miles from the fighting. So our biggest worry there was dodging super tankers and not getting run over.
What are super tankers?
You do have one question here about if do I have any injuries I still face today? Well, I got a couple of things. One, while I was an instructor at submarine school, I fell on some ice and I crushed a disc in my spine. And
That
now
must
it's
have hurt.
starting to, as I get older, it's starting to cause me problems. And I'm dealing with the VA and they're taking care of me. And I got a couple of appointments coming up to try and work on getting that fixed. Also, because I worked with nuclear weapons and was on board nuclear submarines, I have a fairly high radiation exposure.
You had radiation exposure to the weapons.
You type that up. Yes, the exposure came from both the weapons I worked on and the living in close proximity to a nuclear reactor. So I have 1.46 rem, which is pretty high. If you get 5 rem in an hour, it's lethal. But I got mine spread out over 20 years. Most of it's neutron from the missiles and the bombs. And then part of it is gamma from the reactor. Because of that, my thyroid isn't working correctly. So I have type 2 diabetes, which is also being taken care of by the VA. So
Wow.
I have residual from being in the service. I was discharged. I actually retired in August 1997 with full pension and full medical. What is the one thing I will never forget? You get to be very close. The submarine has a very small crew, only 130, and you get to know everybody. And because there's so few submarines in the Navy, you end up serving with the same people. So you kind of build some good friendships and some good bonds. I like to do the traveling. I've been to 23 countries. When we deployed for 6 months, we do 3 months of surveillance off the Soviet coast. And then the other 3 months was what we called a show the flag tour. And you would just go to other countries and it's a show of force saying, yeah, the US is here to help. We're here protecting you. And this is what we've got. So I've been to Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, Japan, the Seychelles, just all over the place. We did some time off of Somalia protecting the aircraft carrier while they were dealing with the Somali pirates. I did receive several awards. I have 2 Navy Commendation Medals, which is the 5th highest medal. I have 4 Navy Achievement Medals, Battle Efficiency, Liberator of Kuwait. I ended up with 18 medals and ribbons. What's ironic is I did not receive a combat action ribbon for Desert Storm, but I did for Somalia. And Somalia, we never launched. So bureaucracy on that. When I left the Navy, I bounced around looking for good work in electronics. And about 2006, I got a phone call from a recruiter out of Intel Corporation and was offered a job there paying 3 times what I was making. So when we moved from New Jersey, we were living near my daughter out to Arizona and started working for Intel Corporation. And after 12 years, I left them and went into retirement. My training in the Navy did a lot of helpful stuff. And Intel and some of the other high-tech companies really look for veterans because we have the training and the hands-on knowledge of how to do things.
Were there any ceremonies that you went to?
Okay, you need to.
Oh, right.
I've done to a lot of ceremonies. I work with a group called MIAP, Missing in America Project, and we scour funeral homes looking for the remains of unclaimed remains of veterans, and we give them military funerals. I was honored a couple of years ago here in Arizona as being inducted into the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame. And that is something we do to recognize all your work after you left the service, all your volunteer work. I am a service officer with the American Legion, and I help veterans get their VA claims. And
That's
so
impressive.
that's how I was inducted into that from those groups I work with. Then also what you probably saw me before when you did your interview with Jack Holder.
Mm-hmm.
I travel with him. I do research for his presentations, and so I get to meet a lot of really neat World War II veterans and a lot of living history. Yes, I went to Pearl Harbor with Jack for the 80th anniversary, and we were able to take him to his hangar, which is still standing, and he walked us through every place he went that morning. And it's quite somber. He got very emotional and had a lot of memories come flooding back.
Yeah, I saw on the Best Events Instagram that that they went to the, like you said, they went to the hangar where he saw the first bomb that fell at Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, I actually caught part of what you said there. Yeah, it was really neat to have him show us every place he went that morning as it happened. And we were there on December 7th, the actual 80th anniversary, as he's walking us through. He says, I started standing here. We heard this and this. We ran out this door and we turned this way. And we went on here, and we actually found the places, marks on the ground still in the cement where he was strafed by the Japanese planes.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's all my questions. So I'm just,
okay. Well, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, and hope this helps your project. Thank you.